Does your father even earn enough to support you? My future father-in-law sneered, his words dripping with contempt. Or does he expect you to latch onto my son for security? I sat there, stunned, a chill settling over the room. Excuse me? I managed to say, but Gerald's gaze remained unyielding, cold and calculating. He barely paused before concluding, "It's not uncommon for families like yours to see an opportunity and seize it." Sensing my discomfort, Kingston interjected, "That's enough, Dad. Caroline isn't here to be insulted." Gerald's sharp, dismissive shrug said everything his words didn't. But he didn't know yet that his assumptions about my family were about to be shattered. I am Caroline Adams, a 31-year-old in San Francisco, with my boyfriend, Kingston. We met in law school 5 years ago, fell in love instantly, and have been living together since graduation. I work as an attorney in a consulting company, while Kingston is employed at a bank. 8 months ago, Kingston proposed during a holiday, and we decided to inform our parents about our wedding plans. This weekend, we were set to meet my parents, followed by a meeting with Kingston's parents the next week. This would be the first time we introduced each other to our respective families. Excited about our plans, I called my mom to share the news. However, my joy was marred by the hurtful conversation with my father. I couldn't understand why he would make such baseless accusations, tarnishing what should have been a joyous occasion. We planned to visit my parents' home this Sunday. "Does that sound good?" I asked. "Yeah, sure, see you," my mother replied. The following week, Kingston and I made our way to my parents' residence in Portland, where I had spent my entire upbringing. My father, Bryson Owen, retired as a judge, and my mother devoted her time to being a homemaker. Kingston appeared somewhat anxious during the journey, but I attempted to reassure him. "Don't worry, my parents are laid back." "Oh yeah, I'll find out today," he muttered. Upon entering the house, my mom eagerly came forward to welcome us. Kingston greeted her with a nervous smile, and she ushered us into the living room, where Dad sat engrossed in his newspaper. Kingston approached him and extended a handshake. My dad promptly rose and reciprocated with a formal handshake, his courteous demeanor swiftly dispelling Kingston's nervousness. The day unfolded with discussions about work and life, accompanied by a delightful lunch prepared by my mom. Dad shared anecdotes from his time in the courtroom, and my parents appreciated Kingston's polite nature. Kingston also appeared to enjoy his time with my parents, and we departed with fond memories. Kingston seemed relieved and delighted with the experience, and I shared in his happiness. The subsequent week marked my turn to meet Kingston's parents. Throughout the week, Kingston carried a sense of tension stemming from our upcoming visit with his parents. When I inquired, he simply replied, "You know, I don't get along well with my father." "I know," I replied. "Don't worry, it's just a matter of a few hours. We'll meet them and return home." Kingston's father, Gerald Holder, pursued a business career and hoped for Kingston to join his real estate venture. However, Kingston harbored different aspirations, desiring to study law. This difference in career paths strained their relationship over time. En route to his parents' home, Kingston cautioned me, "Don't be upset if my father behaves arrogantly." "Why? What could be the reason?" I asked, concerned. "I'm not sure. Perhaps he's still upset with me," he responded. "That happened a while ago," I reasoned. "He must have forgiven you by now." "I hope so," Kingston said quietly. "But my father isn't quick to forgive." "Don't stress too much," I assured him. "You're just overthinking. Everything will be okay." Kingston's nervous energy rubbed off on me, causing my unease. His residence, located on the opposite side of the city, was a story bungalow surrounded by a spacious lawn. Upon entering, Kingston's mother, Kendra, greeted us warmly. "Hello, my dear," she said, embracing us. Kendra appeared kind and composed as she led us outside to the bungalow's lawn, where my fiancé's dad, whom I'll refer to as Gerald, awaited us. Kingston rarely spoke about his father, but the little I knew led me to envision an arrogant, wealthy man eager to flaunt his riches. To my dismay, Gerald lived up to this image, sitting with folded arms and a rigid posture that suggested lingering anger towards Kingston. As soon as I made eye contact with Gerald, I flashed a broad smile and nodded in greeting. "Good day to you, sir," I said warmly. He acknowledged with a nod, signaling me to take a seat across from him. As I settled in, Kendra tactfully broke the silence. "Caroline, you exude beauty and elegance," she remarked. "Your parents seem to have taken great care of you." "Thank you for your kind words. You're beautiful as well," I responded, aiming to maintain a positive atmosphere. "That's very sweet of you. Could you share more about yourself?" Kendra encouraged, offering some relief in the presence of Gerald, who sat with crossed legs, folded arms, and an inscrutable expression. With a smile I began, "I was born and raised in Portland and currently work as an attorney at a consulting firm." Gerald's demeanor shifted noticeably, and he interjected with a somewhat accusatory tone. "Hold on, you're an attorney? Why can't your father provide for you? Does he not earn well? What did your father do?" His unexpected reaction caught me off guard, and I responded in a perplexed tone. "My dad is retired." Before I could finish, he cut me off sharply, insinuating that my father might be expecting me to support him in his retirement. Without letting me complete my thought, he passed judgment, leaving me furious. When I sought clarification, he callously insinuated that it's common for impoverished families to manipulate their daughters into trapping wealthy men for inheritance. I was in shock. Did he mean to suggest that my family and I had trapped his son for our wealth? His nonchalant shrug and response were even more shocking. I couldn't fathom someone being so heartless. Gerald's disdain for my financial status made me feel inferior. The urge to leave overwhelmed me, but Kingston, holding my hand, urged me to stay a while longer. Facing Gerald, Kingston firmly stated, "We haven't come here to endure taunts. We're here to announce our marriage." When Gerald inquired about the financial aspects of the ceremony, Kingston firmly replied, "That's our business, not yours." Gerald persisted, asserting that the financial burden would inevitably fall on Kingston. An argument ensued, with Kingston losing his temper and defending his decision to pursue law rather than joining the family real estate business. He refuted the claim that I influenced his choices, emphasizing that he didn't even know me when he left home. Gerald's unreasonable accusations against me and my parents were met with Kingston's strong opposition. Finally, Kingston asserted that he had no further comments and censured Gerald for making life decisions centered around marrying a financially challenged girl. "She and her parents appear to have already cornered you," my future father-in-law concluded. "Stop," Kingston said, irritated. "I've met her parents. They are kind people and have no interest in your wealth." The conversation between them became intense. "You've consistently made poor choices in life. I had already given up on you when you chose to study that seemingly foolish law and work for a meager salary instead of joining my business," Gerald shot back angrily. "I strongly disapprove of your business due to its questionable moral standing," Kingston continued reproachfully. "Please, let's put an end to this argument," Kendra pleaded, intervening in the heated exchange. Kingston angrily rose from his seat and exited the lawn, with me following closely. Kendra hurried behind us, imploring us to stop. "Kingston, please, stop," she begged, but he ignored her and continued towards the bungalow exit. Glancing back, I witnessed Kendra tearfully running towards us. I halted, and she grasped my arms, saying, "Please ask him to stop. The last time he left like this, he didn't meet me for several years." I stood there, feeling a sense of sympathy and remorse for her predicament. She wasn't to blame. She suffered due to her husband's arrogance. "Caroline, please ask Kingston to calm down," Kendra implored. I struggled to find the right words, still upset with Gerald's remarks. Attempting to console her, I replied, "Kingston is upset right now. Once he's in a better mood, I'll ask him to call you." "Yes, please ask him to call me, please," she continued to beg me. "Sure, take care, okay?" I said as I exited the premises. Kendra continued sobbing as I left the bungalow to find Kingston waiting for me inside the car. We drove back in silence, both deeply affected by the events at his father's house. After dinner, Kingston expressed regret over his father's actions. "Sweetheart, I'm truly sorry for how my father treated you. I know his harsh words caused you pain." "Yeah, I understand it's not your fault, but I can't overlook the fact that he's incredibly arrogant," I replied, then added, "How can someone be so rude? I know he's your father and I shouldn't speak ill of him, but he was unkind to me." He has always been a mean person. Unfortunately, my mom has to endure his arrogance, Kingston explained. I wonder how she's put up with your father for all these years, I murmured, shaking my head. Kingston's mom has always been a gentle-hearted woman, and it seems that his dad is taking advantage of her forgiving and caring nature. I empathize with your mother, I added. I also cut off ties with her when I'm angry with Dad. However, she has consistently loved and supported me, Kingston remarked. It is not fair to punish her for your father's mistakes. You should reach out to her now. She was genuinely upset when you left the house in anger, I concluded. You're right. Let me call her. Thanks for supporting me, my fiancé said gratefully. After the call, Kingston had a conversation with his mom, pacifying her. Still in shock, I was concerned that Gerald might insult my parents at our wedding. When Kingston returned after talking to his mom, I shared these concerns with him. He assured me that he would figure something out. As we delved into wedding preparations, I expressed my desire to marry on my parents' wedding anniversary in the same church where they tied the knot. Would you mind if we married on my parents' wedding anniversary? I asked. Initially amused, Kingston later agreed, saying, it's not a big deal. With the date 8 months away, we gradually made preparations, booking a resort in Portland for the wedding dinner. My parents suggested a pre-wedding dinner with Kingston's parents for the families to get to know each other. Both Kingston and I were hesitant, anticipating that Gerald might ruin the gathering. I informed my parents that Kingston's dad was often busy with business travel. Although my father sensed something was amiss with our reluctance for a family get-together, he did not press further. Kingston shared the wedding date and location with his mom, who expressed happiness and excitement. She called me multiple times, showing genuine interest in the wedding preparations. As the wedding date approached, my concern grew about facing Gerald on my big day. Many times I considered asking Kingston not to invite Gerald, but I feared my parents would become suspicious of his absence. Moreover, not inviting Gerald might prevent Kendra from attending, and I didn't want her to suffer because of him. I opened up to my fiancé about my anxiety, saying, Kingston, I'm worried that your father might ruin our big day with his arrogance. What if he insults my family in front of the guests? He smiled and responded, if he does, I'm sure your father would handle him and teach him a lesson. After all, he is a judge and knows how to handle difficult people. When I suggested telling my parents about this, Kingston advised against it, fearing unnecessary stress. Let it be. If anything happens, I'll ensure that my dad doesn't cross his line, he reassured me. Although still not fully convinced, I found assurance in Kingston's words as he looked at me and said, Honey, no matter what happens, I'll always be on your side, so cheer up. His response eased my concerns. I knew my father could handle the situation, as Gerald's arrogant assumption that we were after Kingston's inheritance was untrue. The day before our wedding, we drove to Portland, having booked a hotel for friends and relatives. Kingston's mom informed me that they would come directly to the church for the main wedding. Nervous but excited, I walked down the aisle with my dad, experiencing the happiest moment of my life. During the vow exchange, I noticed Gerald and Kendra entering the church. My parents escorted them to the front row, where Kendra waved happily. Meanwhile, Gerald sat with a grim face. At that moment, I stopped caring about him. I was overjoyed to have my parents with me as I embarked on the journey of marrying Kingston. Everything went smoothly, and after the ceremony, we retired to the hotel for some rest before the wedding dinner. Curious about whether my parents had the opportunity to meet Kingston's parents, I inquired with my mom. She revealed that due to the late arrival of Kingston's parents and the bustling wedding preparations, they only exchanged formal greetings. Concerned, I nervously questioned whether Gerald, Kingston's father, had expressed any concerns. My mom reassured me that Gerald hadn't conveyed anything and seemed rather silent throughout. However, she noted that he appeared upset, which heightened my anxiety. As we gathered for the wedding dinner, I couldn't shake off my unease. When Kingston's parents unexpectedly showed up, Kendra, Kingston's mother, was cheerful and greeted everyone with a warm smile. In contrast, Gerald stood rigid with folded arms, showing no interest in offering congratulations. Instead, he confronted Kingston, expressing dissatisfaction with the decision to hold the wedding at our place rather than theirs. Kingston defended the choice, urging, "Dad, don't spoil the occasion." Gerald, however, accused, "Your family is ruining your life, Kingston, with this extravagant wedding dinner." Kendra intervened, attempting to defuse the tension. Still, Gerald remained adamant, unconcerned about the arriving guests. To salvage the situation, my parents approached Kingston's parents, extending warm greetings and apologizing for the lack of formal introduction at the church. Despite Gerald's apparent disapproval, they maintained a polite conversation. When Gerald finally introduced himself, he highlighted his success, saying, "I run a real estate business with an annual turnover of over $23 million. The strained atmosphere persisted. Gerald interrupted again, commenting on my father's retirement. "Yeah, I know. Caroline mentioned you're retired now. It must be difficult for you," he said, with a hint of condescension. My father, with a hint of humor, responded, "Difficult? Why would it be difficult? I receive a handsome pension from the government for my service. I'm a retired judge, not a retired janitor." Amused by my father's unexpected revelation, Gerald stammered, "What? Are you a retired judge?" "Why is that a surprise?" My father laughed. "Did you assume I was a janitor?" Caught off guard, Gerald turned pale and struggled to find words. No, I didn't assume anything like that. I just didn't know you were in government services." Satisfied with the revelation, my father asked, "Now that you know, do you have anything to say?" "No, I'm good, thanks," Gerald muttered awkwardly. Observing the situation, I noted that Kingston was right about my father's ability to handle Gerald. Gerald, who initially made me feel inferior by assuming my family's financial status, was now taken aback to discover my father's esteemed position as a retired judge at the Portland court. As my parents excused themselves to greet other guests, Gerald pulled Kingston aside, expressing his frustration. "Why didn't you tell me her dad is a retired judge?" he demanded. Before I could respond, Kingston interjected, "Excuse us, we want to enjoy our wedding dinner," redirecting the conversation. Gerald's face turned red with anger, realizing he had miscalculated the social dynamics. He had presumed he was the wealthiest at the party, only to find renowned government officials and bureaucrats mingling with my parents. Left with no one to vent his frustration to, he turned to Kendra. The rest of the evening, he feigned a smile during introductions to high-profile guests, but his frustration was evident. Eventually, he left the party early, dragging Kendra with him, leaving her torn between spending time with us and fulfilling Gerald's demands. I couldn't help but feel sorry for her. After a few months, I learned that Kendra had decided to divorce Gerald. Her motivation stemmed from an inability to tolerate his dominating nature. Kingston confided in me. My father didn't initiate the establishment of the business himself. It was inherited from his paternal grandfather, Kendra's father. My husband explained that as his mother was the only daughter, her father entrusted the business to Gerald before retiring to the countryside. Despite Gerald being the face of the business, the true owner was Kendra. Following their divorce, she reclaimed her father's ancestral business from my father-in-law and handed it over to her first cousin. The bungalow, where Kingston's parents resided, also belonged to Kendra's family. After the divorce, Gerald was ousted from this ancestral home and found himself with no place to live. My mother-in-law shared with me, my ex-husband's parents and siblings severed ties with him long ago due to his insulting behavior towards them in light of their financial struggles. And now Gerald, having burnt bridges with his family, is making a living through odd jobs. Despite his predicament, I find it hard to feel sympathy for him, given the damage he caused to his relationships due to his shallow and arrogant nature. It appears that he entered into marriage with Kendra solely for her wealth, and his subsequent behavior suggests a projection of his greed onto others. On a positive note, Kingston and I frequently visit Kendra at her bungalow, where she has embarked on organic farming in the backyard, cultivating fresh fruits and vegetables. She generously shares her harvest with us during our visits. Witnessing her independent and content life, unaffected by her former husband's cruelty, brings me joy. My husband and I too are enjoying a happy and prosperous life together.